Hey everyone, and welcome to another one of these videos where I'll be ranking the songs on an album I like. The ranking will be entirely based on opinion and how much I enjoy the song, not if the songs are good or bad, purely my enjoyment of them. I'll give a description of the song, what I like and dislike about it, so you have an idea of what it is that makes me enjoy it. The album I'll be covering in this video is the 6th studio album by Red Vox, Afterthoughts, released March 3rd, 2023. At the time of this video, this is their most recent release. Afterthoughts is meant to be the second half of Visions, both being parts of a double album. This album is a heavy mix of guitars and synths, almost giving you a mix of what could go wrong and realign. It has a lot to offer in terms of sound with a few surprises along the way. Production-wise, it's on par with Another Light in Realign and Clarity, which is an improvement over Visions, something I will cover whenever I get to that album. The album has a mixed feel emotionally. The mood goes between pretty depressing and very positive. It's an interesting mix. Afterthoughts is 10 tracks long and has a runtime of 34 minutes and 8 seconds. This ranking will not include Me Oh Well, as it is not part of the album. It's a B-side to the Almost a Stranger single and is a separate release from the album. Later on I'm going to talk about Visions and Afterthoughts as a whole and how these two work together, and my opinions on them back to back, which is how they are intended to be listened to. I know at the time of this video I haven't done one on Visions, but I feel like it would be more fitting to talk about the combined albums at the end of the second half of them. If you haven't seen the previous video, here's how this will work. I'm going to list off the songs in a particular order. When I list off a song, I'm going to talk about it, the instrumental, the vocals, the lyrics, what I like and dislike about it, and then we'll move on. Starting with my number 9 pick, I'm going to go down to number 2. To prevent obvious favorite or least favorite choices through the process of elimination, I'm going to do my favorite and least favorite at the same time. Number 1 will be my top song, number 10 will be my bottom. Now let's finally get into it. At number 9 we have Forget Her. Forget Her is track 8 on the album. Now before I talk about this song, I want to tell a quick story. When the single and video for this song came out, it caught me off guard big time. I was up at night watching TV and I was checking my phone during a commercial. I swiped down to see my notifications and nothing out of the ordinary was there, and I kept it open. I looked up at the TV for a moment and then looked back down to see this video's thumbnail on my screen. Out of nowhere there was an alien on my phone and I was so confused. Why is Red Vox uploading aliens? It took me a minute to realize I was looking at Norts and this was a music video. I'm never going to forget how dumbfounded I was when I first saw that. Anyways, on to the song. Forget Her is good. I like the song a lot. It's got simple guitars and chords and complementing synths. The bass is really good here as it adds some variety while still following the guitars. The drums are a bit too simple and I think it takes away from the song's potential. A few fills here and there would have been nice. The whole thing comes together to make a very happy sounding song, and it's a nice change of pace from the pretty depressing sound that the album has up until this point. The lyrics are great and positive too, and they add to the song's happy charm, as well as the music video because Norts is in it and that's pretty funny. The bridge is incredible and it fills me with some feeling I can't describe, and it sucks that it only lasts about 10 seconds. My problem with this song is that it's very repetitive. The main riff is repeated way too much and it takes up a good chunk of the song. A major, F sharp minor, and G major are the only chords used for like 90% of the song, with only the bridge having something different. For a song that's less than 3 minutes, being this repetitive is not a good thing, and it really hurts a pretty good and fun song. It's a standout track, but it doesn't have too much to offer sadly, and I honestly forget her that this song is even on the album sometimes. That's why it's so low. Forget her, forget her. At number 8 is Playing by the Rules. Playing by the Rules is track 2 on the album. The song is a good mix of guitars and synths, and it works very well. I like the guitar work in this one especially, because the rhythm is jumpy and energetic sounding. There's some great atmospheric effects in the verses, and the chorus is very bouncy and nice too. I like the solo. I wouldn't describe it as groovy, but that's the word that comes to mind. It just sounds nice. It makes you want to move. I also like the added octave to the end of it. The bass work is great here, moving up and down in the background and loosely following the guitars, doing its own thing like it's playing a different song entirely. The drums are fairly simple and keep the song moving, and they fit nicely. My only complaint about this song is the post-chorus part. The guitar comes in abruptly and it kind of stops the flow a bit. But that's the only thing I don't like. The rest is great. I kinda had a tough time figuring out what to write for this one. It has a lot to offer, but I don't think it really shines, despite it being a pretty good song. I simply prefer other songs on the album, and that's why it's so low.
I can play kinda cool, but I'm just like Eminem. It's time to be.
At number 7 is Keep It Together. Keep It Together is track 7 on the album. This one sticks out for me because it was an unexpected acoustic track. On my first listen to the album, it really took me by surprise, and it wasn't just the acoustic guitar. The vocals here are incredible. There are so many high notes and I love it. We haven't heard vocals like this since Tell Me on Another Light, and I'm glad I get to hear something like this again. Vinny's voice really works well in the high range, even if he probably needs some pitch correction, but I don't blame him. It sounds great. On to the instrumental. The acoustic parts are a mix of broken chords and strumming, which reminds me of how the guitars are played on What Could Go Wrong. There's some synths and piano in the first half instead of drums and bass, which I actually like. The song went for a different approach, and I think it sounded good. At the end of the song, the drums and bass appear for the outro, and I really like the outro. You're hit with a sudden riff high up the neck after some silence, and it sticks out. And there's also a nice bluesy sounding lead guitar at the end. I enjoy that too. This is a great song for being a bit different than what's expected at this point in the album. To me, it's like if a song on Kerosene evolved past being a side project, growing more complete and full. Although I really like this one, and I wish it was higher, there are 6 other songs that I simply like more, and that's why it's this low.
It used to be less complicated when you're talking to me. Is it alright to be myself again?
At number 6 is Almost a Stranger. Almost a Stranger is track 3 on the album, and is very different from the songs that you hear before, being mostly keyboard with a handful of short guitar parts. The atmosphere is high in this one, being a slower, more somber track. The lyrics are very good here and are fairly easy to understand, which I think is fitting of this song for whatever reason. It just feels right. There's really not much for me to say when describing this one, it just stands out and is well done. I rarely listen to the band's singles before the album comes out, so I don't spoil myself too much, and so they sound fresh when they do. I give the singles about 1 listen when they release, and that's it. I've been doing that since Another Light. But this song, something about it just clicked with me. It clicked with me so well that it broke that behavior, and I listened to it a ton before the album came out. So something like that makes it a special track to me. I really love this song. I relate to it a lot, and it gets me in the emotions. And I guess around the time it came out, it really encapsulated how I felt, and that's probably why I listen to it so much. I also want to say that I think this song feels a little out of place on the album. I don't know what makes me feel that way, but I just don't think it sits well in line with the others. Maybe it's too synth heavy. I honestly would have rather had Me Oh Well, the B-side to the single, be on the album instead. I think that song fits the album sound much better, being a more guitar-focused track. At number 5 is Eminence. Eminence is the opening track on the album. It's a bit of an odd track, being a heavy mix of synths and guitars unlike any Red Vox song before it. It's a very unique song in the discography, being very psychedelic sounding. The rushed drum beats and synths coming in and out through the song give it a very trippy sound. The guitar solo is also unique for this song, being multiple takes that were chopped up and swapped around, adding to the weird nature of this one. I love the chorus. It's got a good bop to it and almost makes you want to headbang. I could see it working well if it was using a What Could Go Wrong style song with distortion. I like the lyrics because they're a bit more out there than usual, leaving you to really think about their meaning. I have no clue what they mean though. I was very confused with this song on my first listen. The drums initially confused me, and I thought the song wasn't even at 4/4 just to add to the weirdness of it. It isn't standard time though, so it's at least somewhat normal. At first, I didn't like it because I didn't really understand it, and it was my least favorite on the album. Over time though, I've really gained a love for this song and the weirdness of it. I think it works really well as the album's opener too, because it does feel in line with the atmospheric stuff later in the album, despite its weird and trippy nature. At number 4 is Saturnine. Saturnine, or Saturnine, I don't actually know how it's pronounced, is track 6 on the album. Before I talk about it, I want to ask, does anyone else feel a bit of Reno in this song? Because in my eyes, this song is a sequel to Reno. It has the same feel to me, in a desolate, empty place, maybe going through a desert alone. It also has a bit of a space feel, and I love that. It feels like I'm on Saturn II, which is fitting of the song's title. Anyways, about the song, I love the feel of it. Aside from the similarities to Reno, it also feels like a bit of a campfire song, something you'd sing to yourself while sitting by one alone, and the acoustic guitar strengthens that feeling. It's a simple chord song mirroring LSR from Visions, and Reno as well. A few lead guitar parts are strewn throughout to give it a little extra on top. The short break after the chorus, you know the part. I don't know how to describe it, but I really like it. It's a standout part of the song to me. There's a handful of synth parts in this song that add to the nice space-like feeling too. Not much to say about the drums and bass, honestly. They aren't bad, and they serve the song just fine. The vocals, I think, are the shining part of the song. Vinny hits some special feeling and sound in his vocals here, and it's just perfect for this song. It almost feels like he's reading a formal goodbye to someone, as supported by the lyrics. I say this because I've seen the lyrics interpreted in a pretty dark way, being about suicide, which I can kinda understand by reading them. Overall, I really enjoy this song and the place it takes me. Strong atmosphere, strong lyrics, it's just beautiful. At number 3 is The Sound You Make. The Sound You Make is track 9 on the album. And once again, it's a great song with great atmosphere, like many others on this album. This one is unique from the others for a number of reasons. The guitar riff is simple and repeats throughout with a bit of variation, so it doesn't get too stale. I love how it sounds when it changes up about 33 seconds in. There's a number of lead parts throughout between verses, which I always enjoy. It gives your ears something to focus on as the vocals leave for a moment. There's synths sprinkled throughout too, just to add to the atmosphere. Something I think that stands out about this song is the chorus. It's very simple but very memorable. Thinking about the rain sounds a bit familiar, doesn't it? This whole song does sound familiar really, but I'm not exactly sure where I've heard something like it before. There's a bit of a tribal feel with the percussion in this one which I really like. It uses brushes instead of sticks, which really gives the song some nice character. I love the sound it makes. You see what I did there? With the song title? Yeah, I'm sorry. Anyways, the lyrics are also really good here and kind of continue the positive feel of Forgetter. One of my favorite parts of the song is the last verse before the end. It kind of gives me chills and gets me emotional. It starts to pick up and get loud and then just suddenly ends. Part of me wishes it would keep going because that feeling it gives me is nice, but the abrupt end works well here because no other song does it on this album. It leaves you to think about the song. There's other Red Vox songs with an abrupt ending that work well too, such as Cemetery Window. Hits you right in the feels and then leaves. Then you reflect on the song. I also really like the vocals in this one. Vinny does some weird vocal technique. I don't really know how to describe it, but it's just kind of odd, and it really works well with this atmosphere that the song gives you. Overall, I really love this song, the feeling it has and the atmosphere it brings. It's great, it really is. At number 2, we have Traces. Traces is track 5 on the album. Like Evidence, when I first heard this one, I was a little weirded out, and it took me a moment to really get into it. I think the vocals are what caught me off guard at first. Soon after, though, this became one of my all-time favorites. The guitars in this one are simple, but complement it so well. The delay in the left guitar is just beautiful for the atmosphere. It makes it feel kind of hopeless and empty. I absolutely love the lead guitar at the end. It is one of my favorite parts of any Red Vox song. It puts this song on another level all on its own. There's a number of synth parts throughout that add layers of atmosphere, just like many other songs on the album have. The drums are simple but provide enough variation and fills that they don't get repetitive. The vocals, which I think is what made this song feel so weird to me at first, are very good. The whisper-like singing is great. It just adds more to this atmosphere. Same with the distant backing vocals throughout. This song is all about atmosphere and bringing you to this weird, lonely place in your mind with it. My only complaint is the mix is a little off on this one. The right guitar is very loud for some reason and it really bothers me. I think the vocals could go down a bit a little too. Aside from that, I think this is a near perfect song. Alright, it's time to reveal my least favorite and favorite song of this album, and those are Jump the Gun and As Long As I Can Dream. At number 10, and in last place, we have Jump the Gun. Jump the Gun is track 4 on the album. It's my least favorite song on the album, but it's not a song I dislike. It simply doesn't do much for me. It doesn't grab my ears. I like the general feel of this song. It feels a bit uneasy and uncomfortable, and I think the lyrics reflect that too. The guitars throughout are a mixed bag for me. The rhythm playing is those funk-esque chords that Winning the Most has, and like that song, it just doesn't work for me. I like how they sounded in Playing by the Rules much better. I do like the wah effect on them though, it does sound nice. The lead guitar follows the vocals, which is a bit uncreative and doesn't really stand out to me. The few clean guitar parts I do like, but there's not many of them. The bass is nothing special, and it literally only plays 4 notes the entire time. I think a song of this nature with the funk sound could have definitely used a better bass line. The drums are repetitive and don't have anything special going on, though I do like the tom fills throughout. They did the same thing in the past with She Missed a Beat, and I liked it there. I do know that Mike tried to do some crazy over-the-top fills throughout the song, but they ended up dropping it for simple drums. And honestly, I think I would have preferred him going nuts on the drums because it's pretty fun to listen to him do it, even if it might not fit the song. So overall, I really didn't like this one when the single came out, and I still don't. To me, this is the best example of a mid-Red Vox song. It doesn't offer anything special, and it's just kind of forgettable. No real strong idea or backbone for this one. I think this would have fit better on Visions, honestly. It's still a fine track, and if you think it's better than I say, I understand your feelings. It simply doesn't click with me. At number 1 is As Long As I Can Dream. As Long As I Can Dream is the 10th and final track on the album, and my favorite of the album. I say I love a lot of things on this album, but this is the one I love. This song just gives off an aura that clicks with me. The guitars play a nice opening riff before they go to simple chords. The simplicity really works here in my opinion, as you're focusing on pretty much everything else besides the rhythm guitars. There's a few leads in the song, a nice clean one during the break, giving you just a little extra because it can, but the real good one is at the end, when the guitar takes over the synth part you hear throughout. The main synth melody is pretty cool, and it kind of reminds me of the Arthur theme. Yeah, the cartoon Arthur. I don't know either, it just does. The drums keep the song moving with a bouncy positive feel. Weird explanation, I know, but it just feels that way. There's fills throughout to keep things sounding fresh too. The lyrics are definitely my favorite of the album. I honestly can't interpret them, but the whole thing centered around dreams simply makes me smile for some reason. Vinny mentions food again with the line grenadine and shepherd's pie, which is kind of funny to me, like the mention of ice cream in Closer Now. They also reference Visions with There's a Place But There's No Time, which is pretty neat. As for complaints, the intro does get a bit too long, I will admit, it does drag a bit. But goddamn is everything else just beautiful, it is perfect. The ending of the song is also a perfect ending too. The chords fading away into the distance really lets you think about the past 30 minutes of music you just experienced. This one really does take you on a trip and is an incredible closer for the album. And that is my ranking of the songs on Afterthoughts. This album, I think, is a huge improvement over the previous one, and the music left me satisfied and happy. I'll save the details for the Visions video whenever I get around to it, but I'll just say that I was very disappointed with that album when it came out, and I'm still not a fan of it a year later. I think many of the issues I had with that album were completely missing from this one, and I'm happy that's the case. I had high expectations for Afterthoughts because of my previous disappointment, and it delivered. It doesn't top any of the first 4 albums for me, but it's a strong piece in the Red Vox discography, and I'm glad it turned out well. It has a great variety of sounds to offer and a few surprises to throw at you too on your first listen. I do think the album has a bit of an identity crisis though. It doesn't really know what sound it wants. Almost a Stranger is very different from The Sound You Make, for example. Both are very different from Forgetter. I don't think that really hurts the album though, because the variety of sound really gives you something special, and I think it sticks with you when you've listened to all of it. As for the double album concept the band intended with Visions and Afterthoughts, I don't think it works. Afterthoughts already has an identity crisis on its own with its variety of sound, so pairing it with Visions makes it even worse. The styles are a little similar, but still far too different for them to really work together in a single listen back to back. I feel like I'm listening to 2 different albums entirely, and they're supposed to relate to each other. I think the lack of synth use on Visions and the lack of harder, heavier songs in Afterthoughts prevent them from really blending. I personally feel like Afterthoughts is a superior album by quite a bit, as most, if not all the things on this album leave an impression of memory on you, which I can't say the same for Visions. That album did not do any of that for me. All the details as to why is for another day though. I also apologize for the potential decrease in quality compared to the last one of these because, well, I got a new mic and I'm not entirely dialed in on the settings of this, so there's a lot of pops and air breathing and stuff like that, and it just, I can't really iron that stuff out. I don't know how to right now. But I did my best with the balancing here. I also apologize if I use the words like and love and all that crap way too much. I'm not the best at describing things, so for me to write a script is kind of tough. I don't have the brightest vocabulary when it comes to positive words, so yeah, you just kind of have to deal with that. But I hope this is still enjoyable anyways, even if I talk really badly. So that's all I gotta say about this one. Afterthoughts is a solid release, and I'm gonna enjoy it for a long time. It came out in a new chapter in my life, which seems to be the case of most of these albums. Each one just fits perfectly in with how my life is in the moment it's released. And this one's a more positive album lyrically, which I think reflects on me kind of getting my shit together. So I'm glad that's the case. Hopefully the next album's incredibly happy, because then I'll know that life will be very good for me. All I can say now is go support the band in any way you can, whether it's just listening to a few of their songs or buying something from their store. They deserve every bit of support and love for the time and passion they put into the music and for making another great album. Next time I do another one of these, if I do another, it might be Realign or Visions. Definitely not Another Light despite it being my favorite because it's just too hard to rank those songs. I love them all too much. Anyways, that's enough rambling, and I'll see you again whenever.